Welcome to another episode of the Tech Transfer Podcast. I'm Dave Brown. I'm here with Wesley Stevens, who's the founder of Quillify.ai and the CEO. And it's an interesting, great company that we're excited to learn about. So Wesley, can you tell us what Quillify is and why you started it?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Dave. So Quillify is a software to help people find and write grants faster than they normally do. Right. It all started when I jumped into entrepreneurship myself. My background's all in AI, software development, DoD, et cetera. And so starting a business, my first thought was, I'll just go get a grant, get some funding to start off. And going through the whole process from scratch with no help from an established company, it was hard. It was really hard. It took me 3 months to even find a grant I could go apply for, and took me 11 months to submit it. I had to rewrite it 3 or 4 times just because I would write the SBIR and then I would see a research paper coming out about exactly what I was doing. And it's like, oh, great. If I had been able to write it faster, then I could have submitted it sooner and then maybe gotten the funding faster.
And your background, so you have a degree from BYU. Was it computational mathematics? Is that what it is?
Yeah, applied in computational mathematics, minor in computer science, and emphasis in physics.
So had you ever written grant applications before, or was the company the first time?
I had done some as I worked for a defense contractor in New York after I graduated from BYU. I also got a degree from Syracuse University in data science. But submitting it inside a well-established defense contracting organization is much different than doing it on your own, right? So this was the first one I ever did on my own. And I found out there's a lot of things that you kind of take for granted with the company, including like budgets, what's everyone's salaries, fringe benefits, and then where the company is, their history, all that kind of stuff. But I realized as I was writing this thing that, we can use software and AI to make this much, much faster, remove the guesswork.
Yeah, and so it was, I think you started Quillify.ai in January 2023, if I'm remembering. And so that was, most of us learned about ChatGPT, I think December 2023. That when it got big. So you were a little ahead of it because of your academic background. You have a master's also in data science. So you kind of see AI coming before maybe most of us did?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I was playing around with GPT-2 back in whenever that was, like 2017 or something. I'm very excited about it. When I was doing the research for AI in computer vision, I read all the papers about transformers and attention mechanisms, and I thought to myself, this is really cool, but like, what's the real application for it? And I think that's what we were all thinking in the research field there. And then when we saw ChatGPT, it's like, oh, like I didn't think anything like that could have existed, but here we are.
Yeah. And at what point, so you have 2 technical degrees, you've worked for other companies. At what point did you decide, nope, I want to be an entrepreneur, I'm doing this?
About 2 years ago, in 21, 22, every position I was in, I felt like I couldn't produce at the rate that I wanted to, or innovate at the rate I wanted to, and make the kind of impact that I wanted to either. Whether it was
why not? Was it bureaucracy or?
Bureaucracy was part of it. I think as well, sometimes you get hired for a job where they think they could use AI, and then you delve in deep and realize like 80% of the business value you don't actually need to use AI for. And then the last 20%, the stakeholders aren't really convinced that that's worth the cost. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
funny because for most companies, if you make just a 1 or 2% improvement in revenue, that would be massive. But when you're down at maybe the operations level, it doesn't seem as interesting.
Yeah. There's a company I was a part of where I proved that I could save their clients, about somewhere between $10,000 and $100,000 a month. And they didn't really care. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it was a bureaucracy problem, but yeah.
So that can be frustrating. Being in a big organization, it's hard to be. People talk about being an entrepreneur, where you're in a large organization, being entrepreneurial, but a major part of that is going to be cutting through red tape. So you decide to be an entrepreneur, and then what was your first idea? Was this your first concept, or how did you come up with it?
No, and so my first idea, we were looking at building a video collection platform. And so you have the problem of, one-to-many solved with like YouTube. You have the problem of one-to-one solved with, just plain email or text or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But when you're looking at a problem of many-to-one, there are really no good solutions. And you see this a lot in like pitch competitions and auditions for actors and a lot of other places where they need to collect all these different video segments and then get it to one source. The best solution so far is, hey, just go upload it to YouTube and then share us the link, right? Or sometimes it's like, just upload it to my Google Drive, and there's no security in that.
Mhm.
And so we built a solution where you could just record a video and then it would just be in that person's inbox, right?
Mhm.
And then you could have the videos and collect them and everything. And that went pretty well. We built the whole thing. It's actually live right now. You can go see it, videos.me. Um, Jumped off that bandwagon a little bit due to some co-founder issues. Jumped after that into a data analytics startup. Actually, I heard this company come out of Sandbox, actually, Buster. Yeah.
Oh, what is that one? I'm not sure.
So,
If anyone doesn't know, Sandbox is BOE Rollins Center course of study for entrepreneurs.
yeah, and so they essentially make it so you can get data and visualize it just by using your natural language, right?
Okay.
Let me see MRR of this product over 3 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was focusing on that about the same time they were, and I built the whole thing out and just couldn't get any clients, and so I abandoned it. They're actually doing very well for themselves, so it was a good idea, but not the right position for me. I switched from that into a paralegal startup where I could generate these medical summaries and demand letters in just a couple of minutes. And so, paralegal would upload a 500-page PDF of all the medical documents of this personal injury case, and then it would just generate the whole medical summary, tell you what the issues were, what page it was on, all these things.
How did you know that? How did you know that problem existed?
I had a friend come up to me and say, "Hey, I have this great idea, and I know you're in the AI space. So you think you can make it work?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely." Had some co-founder issues there again, and that was the last thing I did before jumping into Quillify as we know it. And I've kind of solo founded this.
Well, you touch on there's so many challenging things launching the company, and getting the right team together is a major part of it, right?
Major part. I think, when you first start a company, you're all rosy-eyed about how the impact this could make, the money you can make. And then when you get into the weeds of it, you realize how much work goes into starting a business. And some people just don't pull their weight. Right?
Yeah. Okay, great. So the product, I'll try to explain your product really quickly. And let me know if I get anything wrong. BOU has been, just so everyone knows, BOU doesn't have any kind of financial interest in Quillify.ai. We're a happy customer. Like we're one of your early customers, I think. And you went through 600 disclosures for us, and your product created these sheets that show you grant opportunities. And I have to think it's around 10 or 12 opportunities per technology. And then one thing that makes it really great too, so that's a lot of research. It would take a human forever to do that. And so it finds that, but then for each grant opportunity, it suggests a couple different ways to position your technology as a product. That's super useful. So I see those as the main features. Is there anything I'm missing?
Yeah, that's definitely there's two sides of the platform, right? There's the search side and then there's the writing side. So the search side, you nailed it. We see oftentimes, especially products coming out of universities, right? They have the technology and they really understand the technology really well. And then they have thought of maybe a couple use cases for it, but maybe haven't vetted it totally. The nice thing about grants is essentially when you look at a grant, you're saying, okay, this funder has gone out and said, I think this is a problem, or I think this is something that can be really useful to a lot of people. And so I want to see something like this. And you may not think like, oh, my technology could actually apply to that. A good example is I did for an alpha user, not BYU. They were looking at some nanosilver technology, and they're just like, I think nanosilver is really cool. I don't really know what to do with it. And within a couple seconds, our system found a DoD grant that was all about cleaning submarines automatically, right? We something lightweight that'll clean submarines and be human safe because you're in a submarine.
Yeah.
And the suggestion said, well, you see, nanosilver is antimicrobial. And so if you mix it with a fogging machine, then that will clean the submarine. And it's like, oh, I may have never thought of that idea,
Right.
especially that niche.
Yeah, we have used your reports to kind of productize technologies a little bit to think, okay, what does the product look like? Because that's a really hard thing in tech transfer.
Yeah. You may see as well that, you have some kind of, mechanism using a certain material that has some properties, and then our system is able to understand, okay, the material you're using has all these properties, and so it can be applied in these kind of ways. And it just tells you when it finds the grants, how exactly it's applied.
Yeah, so super useful. I know you've worked with a couple of universities at this point. I've got to think most tech transfer offices are going to be interested in this at some level. In terms of the AI, obviously AI is doing the heavy lifting on this. What can you tell us? I mean, not trade secret stuff, but kind of how does it work?
Yeah. And so it's all my own custom built natural language processing. There's no use of any commercially available large language models or anything like that, which a lot of people ask me about. Essentially, it's proprietary classification algorithms, semantic search, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It compares the information you give it about what product or technology you're looking at with all of the different grant listings out there, which we've pre-curated for you. And then it just says, all right, is this a good fit? Is this a good fit? And then once it finds the best fits, how is it a good fit?
So yeah, so if I give you a technology, say we have some manufacturing process or something that's been developed at BYU, and you put that into your system, how many decisions is the AI making to arrive at its report?
Oh, thousands. Yeah, thousands.
Yeah.
Depending on when you go and get the snapshot report, it could be anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 decisions, just on which ones are a good fit.
And those are, I mean, as a human, if you were trying to do it manually, you would be making those decisions, or you would be settling. You would make a subset of them really, and not consider some possibilities, I think. Yeah. So what do you oh, go ahead.
And comment on that. A lot of applications submitted for grants get rejected simply because the applicant settled. They shouldn't have been applying it to in the first place, but they did so much work and trying to find things, and maybe there's a little guesswork there. But that's one problem our system solves for you is there's no guesswork here. Everything we show you is everything that you should be looking at.
That's great. And so for customers and people who are using the product, what did you learn from them? What are some insights? What do they like? What do they want?
Yeah, number one is the system does a great job at getting you that short list. It's not, as with any AI product, it's not 100% accurate, but it gives them a chance to say, hey, instead of spending 3 to 12 days every month looking for new opportunities, I just have to spend an hour in vetting the ones that showed me, and then ongoing, if you're subscribed to the platform, we give you these alerts as new grants are coming out. And so you really never have to search again for any specific product. And we actually experienced this ourselves with a grant for Quillify recently.
Oh, great. How do those updates come? Is there like a dashboard that people are seeing these on, or?
Yeah. So when you do your search, you have a dashboard where you can see all the different searches and all the grants that popped up. And then every month when new grants come in, we do that matching process again and throw it onto your dashboard and send you an email saying, hey, this technology or project you're looking at, it has like 3 more grants that just popped out. You should take a look.
Okay. And so at this point, you're far enough into the business, you have customers, you must have run into some competitors of some type. I mean, obviously universities have grant writing services and things. Who are the big players in your industry?
Yeah. So I'd say we're the only ones out there that offer both grant finding and grant writing. this is a 30-year-old industry, right? And so we have a lot of competitors that have been around and become complacent, namely like GrantStation, Pivot RP, those are probably the biggest ones I've seen in the university space, especially. Um,
And are
and
those humans manually doing the work at those companies, or what are they doing?
I think they have some level of automation, but the big difference is like with GrantStation, right? Um, what they do is they give you funding categories. So it's a drill down. And then they give you a bunch of links where you may find grants in that funding category. You have no idea if those grants are really active or if they're a good fit for you. And you just kind of have to click through everything and vet it yourself, right? Um, and similarly with like Pivot, right? They do send you alerts to new opportunities that come out, but they're not specific to you. And so you may get an alert, hey, 100 new grants just popped out. You should go take a look. And then it'll still take you time to go vet all of them yourself. Whereas with our system, we get right to the grant. As soon as you do the search, you can click view and there's the PDF solicitation right there. And we do all that curating for you.
I guess people can go to Quillify.ai to see the details, but is pricing, are people paying per technology, or is it more of a monthly fee for, what kind of pricing do you have?
Yeah. So we have two different product lines. One is our platform, which is on subscription. And there you get unlimited finding of grants, monitoring and alerts, AI writing. And then we have a more like one-off search. If you just want a snapshot of what's out there, that's kind of our cheap option to get in to kind of vet the system to say, is this something that might work for me? And then with how those work is you just give us your description of what product or technology you're looking at, and we'll see, okay, all the active listings today, let's make a list for you and send you an email about those.
So you're a software company, and so typically we think software, it's probably pretty scalable. You can probably grow pretty easily. Is that the case, or what are the challenges of growing the business now?
Yeah. And so with my background being in software and AI and cloud infrastructures and all that stuff, I've already built the system to scale to 100,000 users. Beyond that, we'll have to reorganize some things, but I don't think it'll be too much work. The biggest things are, as we move from just federal and state level grants to the more local and foundational and corporate grants, that's a major challenge for us. The big reason is in the grant world, almost nothing is standardized. You may have a unknown number of PDFs in an unknown format, and maybe just one per website. And you don't know when they're going to come out either. And so having a web crawler to crawl them makes it almost impossible. You can crowdsource them to a point. I think we'll be making some efforts in the future to help larger organizations like city governments and state governments, et cetera, bring some more standardization to the process so that we can help surface those opportunities to the relevant people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So grants being non-standard is probably surprising to people. That's the way these things become about, right? Each agency or foundation is just kind of doing their thing. And then what are some other surprising things about the grant industry that you've learned?
I'd say, there's a lot of people applying to grants, number one. There's a massive amount of grants that flow around every year. I think, just at the federal level, you're looking at in the hundreds of billions every year. And where's all this money going to? I said most of it is going to people who are organizations that are well established. The Ivy League schools, the big defense contractors, but there's this big push in the government right now to say we need more new businesses to commercialize their ideas and their tech to bolster our economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the big push there. So that'll be interesting to see what happens in the future there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the other surprising thing is that um, of all the people that are applying to grants, which is pretty much every organization has a grant out there for them.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 93% of them are doing it on their own because they can't afford some kind of professionalism or professional grant writer or whatever it is, right? You'll be spending probably $12,000 to hire someone to go help you write it. And that's kind of what a lot of universities do. They have these teams of like 35 plus grant writers to help the staff and help check transfer, apply and get these grants.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so it seems to me that universities would be kind of a prime customer segment for you. Who else is big? Would like federal contractors come to you, or who else is there?
Yeah. And so nonprofits, small business, for-profits, Native American organizations is another big one. Universities are really big as well. Governments, even like a lot of state governments will apply to federal grants and then redistribute the money through new grants, right? And same at every level of government. Right. In terms of like contractors, we are looking to expanding into the contract space as well, since those RFPs are very similar to the grant RFPs. And that means request for proposal if you're not familiar with the jargon.
Yeah.
And so those guys are all very interested in those contracts as well. I think when you look at grants and contracts, they both function the exact same. They just have a different target market, slightly different mechanism, but pretty much the exact same way of finding and applying for them.
And I always think of grants as applying to technology, since that's what we do in tech transfer. But you mentioned that Native American groups are a big segment. Is that technologies, or what other grant opportunities are there?
Yeah, there's tons of R&D type grants, and that's typically what you see in tech transfer. There's a lot of like capital development grants, programming grants. So, if you want to host a session on X, Y, or Z, right? There's a grant out there for that. If you want to, help the homeless in some way, there's a grant for that. There's also grants for helping people get into other fields. And I think that's what a lot of what's focused at Native American organizations is that, as well as like infrastructure grants. So like, let's get some broadband networks in here. Let's get some roads.
Okay.
Things like that.
Yeah. So I would think those sorts of transferring to a new career, and I'm just assuming many of them focus on moving people into STEM fields, right? That's what you always hear about. Is that the case?
That's probably the most of them. Yeah. There's there's a couple organizations that focus on the arts and film as well.
Okay.
But yeah, most of them are for STEM.
Okay. Interesting. So you're very enmeshed in AI, universities, research. What do you see as future trends we should be aware of?
Yeah. I think there's a big question mark around language model generated content, right? Especially in the grant space. For some reason, everyone's concerned about plagiarism in the space. And so, with the generated content just being an average of all the data it's been trained on, plus the requirements that you've given it, there's the question, is that plagiarism? Is that some valid content that we should be considering? I think as well, there's this side of it that's looking at all these AI tools and saying, this is really just a big time saver for us. And as long as we can imbue our voice and our data on top of the first draft that it's giving us, then that's great. Let's embrace that. I think there will be a lot of organizations that spin up that are using some kind of AI to automate a certain process, and then it'll be the larger organizations that just kind of eat them up one at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've started, maybe we'll do a future episode about this, but we've started using a technology from a local startup here called enhanced.ai. And what it does is you can create a chart of your process flows and then have AI doing things at every step along the way. So I've got to think we'll see more and more like that, like inside any organization. Aren't you just looking for ways to cut out the things a human doesn't need to do?
Yeah, I think as well, building a sort of company profile of like all your company data. And so you have these like AI personas that you can just ask and query, even if it's not just company, like individuals or organizations.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Then, and I've seen workflows for that, like creating a persona of your ideal customer so that you can get some insights about what they would actually want.
Yeah.
So
I think overall, though, with the movement in AIs, we're really going to, and no code as well, we're really going to see startups being able to spin up with very, very small teams, very lightweight, very much bootstrapped, and get some great initial traction that way. So I'm excited.
well, great. And so you've gone from being purely technical. Did you grow up being entrepreneurial at all, or was it just post-graduation you decided to be an entrepreneur?
A little bit. My dad's an entrepreneur, and he invented things like incremental search and the first ever online rhyming dictionary, and he sold pre-written letters for almost 30 years. And so, we grew up in an environment where it's very much, you can be your own boss, and you can innovate in the way that you want to. You can think for yourself and all these things, and really an attitude of self-learning and self-development. And so growing up in that environment, right, you don't want to be like your dad. And so you try and do other things. But eventually for me, I realized, with the goals I have and the type of work environment that I want to be in, entrepreneurship may be the right path for me. And so far, I've really enjoyed it.
Is entrepreneurship the last profession that AI is going to replace?
I don't know. I don't know that AI will replace many professions. I think, if anything, it'll make it so that each profession requires a lot less labor hours and intelligence to get there. I think entrepreneurship is definitely one of the harder ones because you have so many hats to wear as an entrepreneur. And really, at the end of the day, it's all about client relationships. You could have the worst product in the world as long as you can convince someone that it can help them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But with AI, you can actually talk to those customers up front to build a good product and build the product very quickly.
Great. So we have BYU students who are entrepreneurs who are interested in launching things, many of them interested in software, some of them interested in AI. What are some things you've learned, or what's the best advice you would give them?
I'd say entrepreneurship is all about survival and humility, right? If a lot of times, especially as a new entrepreneur, will have a hard time getting funding from like VC type investors or even angel investors who have a low risk tolerance. And so a lot of that's going to come out of your own pocket, or a grant if you can secure one. And that's kind of what we're hoping to help entrepreneurs do. I say my big suggestion is, you got to believe in yourself more than what's reasonable, and you have to be humble enough to know when your idea is not good or not well positioned, and you need to course correct, and you need to do that very frequently. And then finally, as you become a customer of your own product, you'll realize things that you would never have thought of about your own product and about your own processes. And then you'll be able to improve on your customer experience that way.
But being a customer of your own product means you got to use the thing yourself and go through all the steps, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did that with Quillify recently. Our system told us about a $2 million SBIR grant we wouldn't have been looking for otherwise. And so we heard about it because of our system. We used it to apply to the grant, and we timed ourselves too. And it only took us 50 hours, even with this early iteration, which is great. It's down from like 300 hours on average.
Wow. And so is that one pending? Are you waiting for the grant, or is that?
Yeah, that one's pending. We should hear about it in the next 2 months.
So my impression is that you're pretty well bootstrapped and grant funded. Is that the strategy?
Yep. Yeah. We are bootstrapped and looking for more grant funding. And eventually we'll get to the point where maybe some institutional investment will make sense, but maybe we won't have to. And maybe we'll be able to continue building in the way that we want to be building.
Well, thanks for those insights, Wesley. If people want to reach out to you and get in contact with Quillify.ai, what's the best way to do that?
Best way is probably to connect with me through LinkedIn, Wesley Stevens at Quillify. You can also email me at wesley@quillify.ai. Happy to talk to anyone who's interested in potentially using grants to fund their business, or just have a discussion about how you might use AI.
Yeah, fantastic. And the Quillify.ai website is good. It'll give you a lot of information there too. So great. Well, thanks, Wesley. Appreciate you taking the time.
Likewise.